Well, here we are. Are you ready for part 3, which is the connection of the two units? Let's get started.
All right. Today is connection day. We've got both units mounted and we finally have our coil in. First thing we'll do is take our connection wire and make sure that we do in fact have enough of it. Because this is 25 foot, it should be very close. Maybe have, if I go as a crow flies, which I plan on doing, I should have a little bit of excess. Now if you'll notice, we have one side of the coil, we have a little bit longer length, and that is on purpose because as you've seen, the indoor unit, one side's a little longer than the other, so they don't mount up in the same spot. Of course, there's the other side. A little disappointing with the iCool product here. It looks pretty beat up. Shipping damage. I have some pictures. I don't know if I'll put them up, but a little bit of nicks like this. Sometimes something like this could be a crushed part underneath that. The tubing could be crushed. It may not be suitable for use. I may have to send it back. So we'll look at it, see what it does. We'll put the wire, like I say, we'll put the wire in first. And from that, I should have some excess. Should give me a pretty good idea of just how long it is that I can trim off, because I want to redo the two ends. Because normally these are okay, but they're not the greatest on not their brand, but the pre-made flares are usually pretty good, but not as good as what you can do yourself. Well, we've got our wire pulled through. Now I want you to see just how gigantic that hole is. It's a little more than necessary, I think, at least for the small unit. You see we're almost banged up against top of the plastic, this entire corner, and of course at the bottom, which can be a little bit of a problem. So you might be able to get by with a smaller hole if you don't have to use a thimble, because now we have this big giant hole. We're going to fill that up with something. And it's on the other side of this wall. It's just one side because that's a crawl space. But here we have our wire. I've already got a connector here that will hold the SO cord, SOW, whatever it is. And we'll come through here. Let me pull my temporary off. And we feed it up as the instructions say, up to there and to the terminals up on top. Pretty much all there is to it. Then we button the side in. You need to read your instructions, see how to take the corner of your unit apart. Alrighty then, you see the cable here. This has pin connectors. You see this? Terminal strip. Pin connectors, terminal strips. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. So we're going to cut these off and replace them with, where did I do that? I've already lost it. I've already got it, but I've got a terminal that we'll put on here, put a little shrink tubing on it, and we'll go right up there. I'll show you the next film at it. Okay, we now have our pin terminals replaced with a proper gauge and size of a fork, and they are soldered on then with shrink tubing on top of it. The ground UL likes to see a captured terminal. It could be a ring, or it could be one of the ones that have little catchers so that if it loosens up, it can't come out. We're going to connect those, and that's it. Put the sides on. Okay, she's up and connected. Okay, we are at a stage where I'm going to stop and take a break because it's hot out here. It's going to get windy, but I think I need some coffee, so I'm going to get that down. You see we've got our line fed in. We see now that I have verified what I thought I measured, we're going to have enough with 25 feet of line. So what I'll do is go upstairs behind the wall and re-swage those connections so I know I'll get it done properly. Make sure I don't have any leak up there. Then I'll connect that side, finish tacking up the line, wrapping it up, and come down here, cut the other end off to make up to the unit itself. It makes for a neater installation. The unit is pre-charged for 25 feet. I'm going to have less than that, so I know I'll be good there. And of course, I've got to still pull the vacuum and leak test it before I open that valve.
Hey, appreciate you watching. Do me a favor if you will, subscribe to the channel, either the YouTube or the Rumble channel, which this appears in. And if you can, check the notification bell or settings to make sure that you get notified when new videos are posted. Appreciate it. Now we have the line in, and if you'll notice, it all runs gently downhill. Let's put a little light over in that area. And it goes down so that there are no dips where the oil can migrate out, except down there at the condensing unit. Well, the lines have been cut and re-swaged on both ends. We had extra, about 3 feet extra, so that gets it. One of the things you want to make sure that before you put the nut on, that you get that flare mechanically centered on that joint, on that end. Now wiring is done. It's just pretty well much, you know, matching the colors, black and red, or black and white if you want. I mark mine red to show that it's not a neutral, and then black, white, red for the communication going up, and there's 2 grounds right there. Now let's look upside. I don't know if we will see. Yep, so we just roll right over that top in that space, which was part of what was going to give me a little bit of fit with that structural member. See, it's coming down. It's going to really be behind this, which I probably could have made that work since I'm off of the wall a little bit. Wish you had now just to be belt and suspenders perfect, but I believe that'll work. I don't know how well it's going to show up, but this is a blue fin. The fins are actually very close together, but they're actually coated with something to help keep the oxidation down. Now I set the unit down about 2-3 degrees, maybe 4, just ran it down to make sure it's running. And it's running. Can you hear it? It's quiet, very quiet. Well, it is running. That's not the air pushing it. It's not making much noise. It is a variable, and we have it installed. Well, that's where it's going to rock and roll. Now in this, you see at the final, I have a little bit of an oil trap at the bottom of the line. You may not want to do that. I'm not recommending that you do that. It may actually kill the unit, although that's not what it's intended to do. The loops are a little bit deeper than I would have really liked. It didn't look that deep on the ladder, and I did want a little bit of a loop just to catch for low flow migration out. As you can see from the lines, if you've watched the video up to this point, you see that we had some dramatic fallback to it, which it should return all the oil to that. Now, if it fills up like a P-trap on a sink, when it runs, it's going to pull that oil back in and push it up toward the line, clear out the line. And it increases the velocity in that little loop right where that oil would be, which is the whole point, to get it to pick up that oil and to recirculate it through. However, the instruction diagram does show it leaning downhill toward the valve, which will run any kind of water and sweat right up on that brass into the unit on the side of it, rust the unit a little bit. Rust is not a bad thing necessarily for the life of the unit, but the idea is to give a little bit of a rain drip as well. Although I could have a rain drip a little shorter than that and still manage to get it not to run on the valves. So we'll see as time goes on whether or not I put too much of a trap in it, and we'll see how well it holds up. Now this thing seems to be extremely efficient and running on a very low flow anyway. As long as we don't drain the compressor, we should be okay. But then again, that's part of it. If it were to drain enough oil to catch in those little lines, it's going to blow it and pick it back up and carry it. So it should be okay. That's the theory. I used to design blast chillers and refrigeration, worked at a company that made rack systems for grocery stores, although I did the electrical, not the refrigeration. And we'll find out how well it works. If it doesn't, I'll be getting a new condensing unit, and that's the more expensive of the two. Now, in my example, because I didn't want a do-it-yourself thing, we did trim the lines, we did have to pull a vacuum, and I did re-swage each of the flares to make sure they were good. I also wanted to make sure I had a good head-to-head union of the flare to the fitting and that's necessary to get a good fit to keep it from leaking. So I hope this video is being useful to you. I would recommend following all stated and printed instructions that your unit has, or you might void the warranty, and that's the end of the show. Appreciate it.